Hey man, you're not gonna believe this, but I had the creepiest experience while camping in Yosemite last summer. It still gives me chills thinking about it. So there I was, just me and 3 of my buddies, Brad, Marcus, and Joel, staying at one of those campsites right along the Merced River. We had the tents all set up, a nice fire going, drinking some beers and just shooting the shit like you do. Around midnight, I really had to take a leak, so I unzipped the tent. That's when I first heard these weird, whispery voices, like people murmuring, but I couldn't make out any words. I poked my head out thinking maybe some other campers were outside, but nobody was around, just my buddy's tents in the woods. I tried to wake Brad up to see if he heard it too, but dude slept like a rock. The whispering kept going, actually getting louder and clearer, like there was this crowd of people surrounding our campsite whispering wildly. At first I thought I was losing it, maybe too many beers, but the sounds were so distinctly human-like whispers closing in that I got totally freaked. I just hunkered down in the tent, with my eyes glued to the door, waiting for something to happen. The whispering went on forever, definitely a few hours. When the sun started to rise, the whispering suddenly stopped. I finally worked up the nerve to unzip the tent, and my buddies' tents were abandoned, all their stuff gone. I have no idea what the hell happened to them or where they went. We were supposed to leave together that morning. I'll never forget those voices, and just how bizarre and terrified I felt that night. Still don't have an explanation.
All right, let me tell you about this crazy experience I had on a cruise ship a few years back. It started out as just a regular vacation. You know, my wife and I, we'd been working our butts off and decided to treat ourselves to a nice little getaway in the Caribbean. We boarded this massive cruise liner. It was like a floating city, honestly. Thousands of people, pools, restaurants, the whole 9 yards. The first few days were great. We were stuffing ourselves with gourmet food, sipping cocktails by the pool, just living it up. But then things started getting weird. We'd be walking down the hallway to our cabin and catch these creepy sounds. Like someone was being, I don't know, muffled screams maybe. Just faint enough that you couldn't be sure if you imagined it or not. One night we were down at the piano bar having a nightcap, and I spot this staff member looking around all frantic and scared out of his mind. He rushes up to me and is whispering rapidly in my ear, "Get off the ship at the next port. For the love of God, just get away from here." Then he bolts. I'm thinking, what the hell? From then on, we're keeping our eyes peeled, watching the crew like hawks. They seemed tense, always looking over their shoulders. A couple times I caught them dragging these huge tarp-wrapped bundles below decks in the middle of the night. The turning point was one day at sea. The ship just completely lost power. We're stuck, dead in the water in the middle of nowhere. An emergency message comes over the loudspeaker saying it's just a temporary outage and not to panic. But you could hear sheer terror in the captain's voice. That's when all hell broke loose topside. Fights breaking out, people frantically trying to cram into the limited working elevators and stairwells. We managed to hunker down in our cabin and just waited it out. After about a day of being holed up, there was an announcement that a tugboat was on its way to tow us into the nearest port. The power was still out across most of the ship, but at least we were getting somewhere. Those last 24 hours were pure misery though. No AC, humidity through the roof, food and water running low. Definitely one of the worst travel experiences of my life. We finally ended up getting towed into port after a couple days adrift. As soon as we hit land, my wife and I grabbed our bags and booked the first flight home we could get, but not before witnessing a crazy scene on the dock. The authorities were swarming the ship as we disembarked. Police, Coast Guard, officials of some kind. They had the entire crew lined up on the dock in handcuffs. I caught a glimpse of the ashen-faced captain being led away. To this day, I have no idea what the hell was going on with that crew or what they were into. Part of me doesn't want to know. Were they running some illegal operation, getting into piracy or human trafficking on the high seas? Your guess is as good as mine. Whatever it was big enough for officials to take the whole crew into custody as soon as we pulled into port. I just know I'm grateful we got off that ship when we did. Never did find out the full story behind the power loss and all the strange stuff we witnessed. But I'll tell you this, I'm never setting foot on another cruise ship again. Whatever was happening on that floating nightmare, I want no part of it. I've heard some crazy cruise horror stories since then, but nothing quite tops the sheer terror of being trapped in the middle of the ocean, watching everything around you slowly unravel into chaos and not having a clue what's really going on. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
All right, let me tell you about the roommate from hell I had back in college. His name was Zach, and he seemed like a normal enough dude at first. We got paired up randomly sophomore year to share this little shoebox apartment near campus. Not my first choice of living situations, but it was cheap at least. Well, it didn't take long for Zach's true colors to start showing. The dude was just flat out weird, man. He had these bizarre habits and rituals he would do. Like, he would wake up at exactly 3:33 every morning and then just stand perfectly still for like an hour, staring at the wall. Creepy as hell to wake up to, let me tell you. Then there was the way he ate. Zach wouldn't just have regular meals. Oh no. He would make these grotesque shakes and sludges in the blender out of all sorts of disgusting stuff. We're talking raw meat, eggs, vegetables, protein powders, you name it, he threw it in there. The smell would just linger in the apartment for days. Sometimes I could have sworn I saw the blender mixture moving on its own too. But the worst part was Zach's art, if you could even call it that. He was always rearranging all the furniture in these weird geometric designs and patterns. Then he'd just sit there in the middle, mumbling all sorts of strange phrases under his breath for hours on end. I came home one day to find he had covered the entire living room floor in a thick layer of salt in some sort of elaborate symbol. That was about when the freaky stuff started happening, though. I'd wake up with scratches on my body that I couldn't explain. Strange noises and whispers coming from Zach's room day and night. Even saw what looked like a dark, shadowy figure standing over his bed a few times late at night when I went to the bathroom. Zach just played it cool, like nothing was out of the ordinary, though. The final straw was when I came home early from class one afternoon, and Zach wasn't there. But the apartment was trashed, like a legit crime scene. Furniture overturned, salt patterns smeared across every surface, and these ominous stains and splatters all over the carpet and walls. It looked like one of those ritualistic crime scenes you see on the news, you know? I grabbed my essentials and got the hell out of there. Zach came strolling in a few hours later, calm as could be, acting like nothing had happened. When I told him I was moving out, he just got this crazy look in his eyes and calmly said, "You can never leave." Needless to say, I was out of that apartment within a matter of days, and I haven't looked back since. Never did find out what kind of messed up stuff Zach was into, or what happened in that apartment. But I do know, I'll never be getting another roommate. That's for damn sure.